Today we're going to do a Q&A study session, and we're going to add some content from Unit 4, which is, if you remember, it's about like the maritime empires, the age of exploration. So we're going to talk a lot more about that. Quick plug, Think Fileable, once again, memes, just updates on Fileable in general, and a YouTube channel, some occasional posts about content. Yeah, in this stream, we're gonna talk about content. We're gonna get a quick refresher of Unit 4. Like, it's been a while, I know, it's been months. You probably talked about this either in the beginning of this semester or last semester, which is a while. So we want to do a refresher on that. And then we're gonna do some FRQ practice. We're gonna just go over what to do, how to answer those. So, going back, Unit 4 and Unit 3 cover this time period, 1450 to 1750. So usually what I do is I associate times to like events, like trends. So let's say if you think of 1750 to 1950, or 1750 1900, I would think of like the Industrial Revolution. So for 1450 to 1750, I would think about the following. I would think about the age of exploration. That's the main defining point. After all, this unit is called transatlantic encounters. So age of exploration. So this is where Europe finds another route to Asia. They stumble upon America, and this is where all things start. The colonization, the silver trade, all of those important stuff we're gonna go over later. And subsequently, we see the Columbian Exchange, named after Christopher Columbus. First, he sailed the ocean blue. He discovered America, and then he brought all these diseases, but he brought all those crops too. All these new crops, all these livestock animals. American livestock and animals like came to like Asia to Europe. So it's like a exchange, I would say. New technologies. So if you remember, like later on, the gunpowder empires. So this is where it starts. They start to come to power. This is where like technology just expands rapidly. Technically, gunpowder was only in China, but it gets diffused later on when there's trade. There's diffusion going on. So we're gonna see a lot of technology, like innovations, and once again, global expansion trade. Now there's more bases to cover. So ergo, there's more trade. So now we see back then the Americas was isolated. Now they're not. So you'll see that too. So let's look at going before all this happened. Like, why do they want to explore so badly? Like, why do they want to get out of Europe? Like, are they bored? Are they just simply bored? Is there a main reason for that? I call it, some people some teachers do the 3 Gs. I do 4 Gs. So the first is God, so religion. So Europe was predominantly Christian, and they try to use basically they want to Christianize everyone. It's a popular like AP World video, like a history of the entire world, I guess, like video said like we need to Christianize everyone. We need to like, because they believe that everyone who's not Christian, they need to be enlightened. So it's it's kind of a superiority thing. It's not like the white man's burden. I mean, kind of, but before that, so they want to enlighten everyone, so that it means that they're using religion as a means to justify like their exploration. Like we need to. It's our duty. It's our duty to convert everyone, bring them to the right path. Because really, there's only one right path, and that's Christianity. So God, gold. That's a given. Empires expand. Why do empires expand? Why do empires conquer each other? They want like the wealth. They want to consolidate all the wealth, all the money. I mean, all these because wealth is just a symbol of authority. Wealth is a symbol of power. So even today, so yeah. So this is where we see the rise of mercantilism, where money's based on trade, based on colonies, the number of colonies you have. It's based on your gold and silver you have in your empire or your overseas empire. And of course, another giving glory. So, like any imperialism in general, you want to expand your empire across the oceans because you want everyone to know that you're the you're the boss here. You wanna assert, like modern terms is called assert dominance. You want everyone to fear you because the more powerful you are, no one's gonna touch you. If you're like a little empire in the middle of let's say the middle of Europe, you're gonna dissolve in no time. So you want to spread the glory. You want to spread the expand the empire. Now this is like this is like some teachers what they don't usually use this, but I mean some do, but gateway. So this is just like an immediate cost. So if you remember Europe, it's like there's Mediterranean, there's like some seas here, like the Red Sea, the Arabs. So so the easiest way to Asia is obviously go east, right? Go down like the Middle East and go to Indian Ocean. But it's dominated by Italians and the Ottoman Empire, which was on the rise back then. So usually when someone dominates or someone's controlling a passageway, usually it's like a tall fee, like you have to pay every time. And the Italians are having the time of their lives. It's getting they're getting like it's kind of overpriced too. So they kind of like take advantage, like, oh man, I like this. Easy money. And France, England, Great Britain, Portugal, Spain, they're tired of it. They were like, why are we doing this? Let's find another route. Let's find some explorers. Let's do this. The world is a vast place and we can go around Africa. That's what Portugal did. Let's find another route to Asia. So Europeans wanted the gateway to the Ottoman conquest of Constantinople did not stop trade. It just continued trade. It just happened that trade is now more expensive because now they had to allot more of their expenses to taxes or fees just to travel, and they're done of it. So Venetians made bank. So yeah, let's find a new trade route. Now, this is where we see new technological innovations. So let's say there's an SAQ on either technology in general, like how it continued, how it changed, or in this time period. These are good examples. So, but they didn't just invent it just because. They invented because there's a huge demand to explore, and basically it's a race. You know, it's not like Spain and Portugal are not buddies. France and Great Britain are not buddies for sure. If you took European history too, or if you're interested, like they're not buddy. They're racing. It's against time. So they need like inventions. There's like a huge demand for inventions. We need this. We need to get through we need like long distance travel like equipment. So we see all these innovations like the Astrolab, which it's watch Moana, something like that, but more advanced. So you look at the stars and it's like navigation. We see the Latin sail, which is a huge step up in compared to like normal sailboats where you're just like hanging out there, just letting the wind take you away. And a compass, of course, is still used today in a much lesser extent. So once again, the demand to explore, it's a race. We need the equipment necessary to explore to find this best trade route. So we need to get ahead. We need to start exploring before they do. So it's a race. Now, going back, so I mentioned Portugal traveled across Africa, so he went down South Africa. Oh, the race is between. Just think of like European. Just you can just name any two powers, but if you remember, if you think if in Americas, it's only the predominant Europeans there, the Spanish, and to a large extent the Portuguese, which is why Brazil speaks Portuguese today. But you can also say Great Britain. We'll see 13 colonies, America. Eventually get India later too. Spain, Portugal, France, the Dutch too. Yes, the Dutch, the Netherlands today. So you have like 5 options to choose from. Yeah, Hannah, hope that helped. So going back, Columbus sailed the ocean blue. You all know that song. Brendan Humili's Spanish Armada. Hmm. Good. See, you know. Um, so he sailed the ocean blue. He's the number one explorer I want to focus on because he had the most impact in Americas. So remember, the Americas was isolated back then until he came. Technically, there were like explorers before him, but he was the one that actually like made the big hit, like made this main discovery of Hispaniola, which is the Caribbean, which is part of the Caribbean, and this is where it starts coming down to like Columbian Exchange. But first, it was really harmless, where it's like, hey, I want to trade with you. Is this India? Because once again, Asia. They didn't know. Oh, it's America. No, they were thinking it's India. So unfortunately, he didn't know that Native American populations are not immune to disease. So if you're not exposed to it before, so needless to say, while the Europeans had all the immunity because they already had it, they live in farm. I mean, they kind of live with your pet animals like horses. They live with like they would just play around with their pets. So they already had those like, diseases from animals or from local species, I don't know, insects or climate. So smallpox, measles. So Native American populations were decimated by disease. They were just wiped out. Like 90% of populations, Native American populations were at the time, like the local regions in Americas were decimated by disease. So he tried to. At first, he was like, "Oh, it's a big hit." So you see this land good for agriculture, like we can cultivate some crops and then we can trade them. Look at these native crops. We can trade them. We can export them to everyone else who doesn't have the access to this. So well, if you want to have some like crop fields, some plantations, what do you need? First of all, you need people. You need workers. So they did try to employ, or I would say coerce, some Native Americans, but it didn't work. Why? Because they're mostly gone, or or yeah, they're gone. Like they're once again, disease and like communication issues. It's hard to get language barriers, communication barriers. It's hard to like order them to do something. Well, they did have to show brute force, but that's not gonna get you anywhere. So they were thinking they're trying to think of another alternative. So they were like, "Oh, Africa." So unfortunately, this is where we see the Atlantic slave trade. So if you remember, slavery peaked at this time period. It stopped by the 1800s. So even in your middle school, you've had some good discussion like slavery in the U.S. In the 13 colonies, in the U.S. So same idea here. It's stemmed here in the Atlantic slave trade. They were taken from. They were kidnapped by local rulers, and then these Europeans did some deals. They're like, "Hey, I'll give you some of your guns. And we know you have some local conflict with your rivals, or your. We know there's a lot of succession issues. We know your brother wants to take over your throne, but hey, if you have these weapons, these guns, these manufactured goods, you're gonna have advantage. Just give me some of yours. Just give me like these number of slaves." And unfortunately, some local rulers even complied. So this is where we see the Atlantic slave trade. Once again, Columbian Exchange. So they got there, they brought like their pigs, their horses. At first it was just like a precaution because in transportation, but then eventually in later journeys they brought their crops because um, they wanted to like grow it there. I mean, the Americans had like fertile land, so keep that in mind. So just want to grow their crops there. So from to the Americas, they brought their horses, they brought their pigs. If you look at emojis, they brought rice, which is mostly from Central Asia, East Asia, parts of no, like an obscure part of Europe. Corn, actually, it's not corn. Yeah, it's a grape, fruits, and once again, slaves and disease. But what we got back from the Columbian Exchange is okay. No, that's corn. Okay, corn. We get potato. We get tomato. We got the avocado. All these new food stuff, which increased, which actually led to increase in this is a benefit. It's chocolate. Oh yeah, cow. Cocoa. It brought like it increased the global population. You're like, how? So there's more variety of what they eat. So like the nutritional baseline, it's not like there's more variety now. So the diet like your diet is somewhat more diversified. Like if you go back to like your nutrition class or whatever, you just like the vitamin A, vitamin B, like all these vitamins and minerals. So now these fruits, these new food, it just help like give it more variety than what they normally eat. Once again, Atlantic slave trade, it led to the emergence of sugar plantations, which we see some brutal treatments. So if you read some documents, um, some probably read documents in class, so about like slavery or watching documentaries. It's just heartbreaking, man. So, but they show like a really powerful message. So, um, going back, we also see like the environmental change here. So new plantations, new crop fields. We gotta get rid of these trees. Unfortunately, it's a consistent trend. Urbanization, slashing trees. We need more cities. We need more space. Yeah, slashing trees. So it's a continuity. You can argue even if they're asking for environmental changes, continuities and changes throughout the centuries. Once again, oh, diversity. So I did mention food, but also like intermingling between races. So remember, the Native Americans are here. I mean, here, and then we have actually no, yeah, here. Native Americans are here. Europeans are here. So when they brought people there, we see some offspring by either native by mixed Native Americans and Europeans, which is the mestizos, and then the mulattoes are the Native Americans. No, the African American slaves and the Europeans. Or there's even I forgot the term, but even between Native Americans and African American slaves. So we see some diversity here. We see some increasing. It's not just within races. They kind of intermingle. Now, this is like a checklist, like a checklist for Europe, like how do you dominate the world, sort of. So this is what they did actually. So regardless of the Americas or in Asia, but this is most in Asia though. They established trading post cities. So if you remember the Indian Ocean Trade Network, it's like a spread out. It's like there's West Africa here, there's like India here, there's kind of the Middle East here. We see it's like a Southeast Asia, just like a cluster of islands and archipelagos. So instead of just having to like trade in different places, like in random places, they were like, I don't want to find another place again. We'll just establish a city here, or we'll help the locals establish a city here, and this is spot work and trade. It's like an Airbnb, an international Airbnb. Like, oh well, we're in India, so let's sell it to Malacca or Calcutta. So it's just for convenience, and it did benefit the world because like Muslim merchants also traded there. So actually, the DBQ for last year was about Portuguese trade, which the one I took last year, Portuguese trades, and like in documents you can see how the local Muslim merchants were angry with the Portuguese for competition, for because of they're basically forcing the locals there to like, trade with them. They're like it's kind of extortion, kind of, because they have the power. Once again, it all ties back to authority. So you want the power, you have the power. You can just assert the dominance over the region. Going back, yep, we see it in West Africa too. Remember the um, West African states like the coast. We have India too. I should go for India as an example. Also, I forgot Swahili. Oh, I just remembered Swahili city states in West Africa. So, also, you want to bring some missionaries. This ties back to God. You know, it's kind of like a smooth talking kind of thing. Usually, if you want to start curry the favor of the local ruler, the local king, the local sultan, you want to try to like bring in some missionaries first. Don't like brute force is ideally the last resort. Like start with missionaries, just like start like scooching your way through and like, hey, we got this awesome religion, like it's called Christianity, man. I want to try it out. We have some cool values, something like that. So they're trying to convert these people first. This is what they did in the Americas. It started with missions. It didn't start with Columbus conquering like Genghis Khan style, Temujin style. It started with like him converting Native Americans. He's trying to curry some favor with them to their side, So missionaries, and as an effect, it takes over local culture, whether it be completely or partially. So either we see like some blend, so like pagan belief, polytheism, and Christianity kind of doesn't add up, but it happened. Or it's just completely Christianity just converted. They rebranded themselves, they renamed themselves. And then that's where we go trade with locals. Once again goes back to trading post cities, and we see the rise of like the British East India Company, the joint stock companies, which we'll go over later. Um, these are they're basically like investments. Like it used to be like in a ship. Let's say you have like three. Let's say you have like a trading ship, like a merchant ship, and then you're like the only investor in that ship, and it sinks. Like everything fails. It just gets sunk in the middle of the ocean. Then all your investments are like they're gone. All your capital is gonna be gone. But if you have like five partners, like you invest in that same ship, like let's say on that front ship you lost 100%, that was just 20% because you split in between the five. It's like we see these joint stock company like more complex economic methods like trade. And this is what they did. They're pretty sneaky too. This is what happened with the Inca Empire. They took advantage of local conflict. So they know there's a rivalry going on. This is what happened with slavery, remember? They're like, hey, I'll give you some guns, let us use slaves. Or in the Inca Empire, there was this like sibling rivalry between Atahualpa and his brother. And they were like, oh, we'll help you as long as you give us gold. And then eventually either they turn on them or they betray them and they take over the region. So this is just a pattern. This is usually what the Europeans do. So like the top strategies. So there you go. Colonies. So eventually, it started with conversions, just normal, good old day, good old frolicking in the fields and just having fun together. Eventually, but let's be realistic here. They want gold quick, and like they want gold. They want a lot of gold. They want gold as soon as possible. So so Spain eventually colonized the Americas. Remember, Portugal was another of the rival states during this time. So at first they were like, no, 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 no. That part of Americas is mine. No, 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 that's mine. So the Pope had to step in and then he eventually drew a line of they call it the line of demarcation. It's like divided the Americas into this side is Spain, this side is Portugal. So, and you're wondering why is it like Portugal is getting the short end of the stick? If you remember, only had Brazil. It's because they thought that the old world kind of is the old world is kind of like more vast and yeah, they had more land. But in reality, so on the other side we have Spain, we see like South America, Central America, we see parts of Mexico, you know. So they just got the short end of the sticks. It's a trio of tortillas. So I'm surprised. When I was a TA for world history, like people actually say trio of tortillas. No. Close enough association. So going back to Spain. If you remember, the main empires here are like the Aztecs and the Incas. The Mayas were there for some point until they collapsed. But they live like agriculture societies. Like they have these interesting like not champ, Chinampa system. All those. There were no. They had like their own empires. They had their like a typical like empire from like the post-classical era until they fall. So it starts with the Aztecs with Hernan Cortez. So number one factor here was disease. Once again, it's all about disease, and they're already weakened by the disease, and then they step in, and then the rivals are like, "Oh, we got some we can beat up the Aztecs now that we have so the Europeans banded up with their rivals, like the Aztec rivals, like basically people hate the Aztecs because they were like, your enemy is my enemy. It's like a revolution. Your enemy is my enemy, so it's our enemy, so we can band together, something like that. So they fall. The Incas fall. The Incas fall to Pizarro. So it's the same factors, except this time it was betrayal. This is like a common document, but so eventually Atahualpa was like, "Oh, we're done. Our deal's over. And like, just don't go after us." And then he was like, "Sure, I'll come back in a couple of years, but I want this amount of gold." And they complied, which is, it's supposed to be a happy ending. Like it's a good trade deal, but no. Eventually, Pizarro turns against Atahualpa and still has him all killed, even if he has a gold. So he has a gold and he had him murdered. So it is pretty. That's just not definitely not honorable, I would say. Once again, European competition over the land. So we talk about the South, so South America, part of North America, Spain and Portugal. They kind of settled that. But in the North, we see, if you remember, like France and the Great Britain are competing over here, and they're kind of arguing over land. So this is where the 7 Years' War happens, where um, you know, Britain and their colonies are fighting France and their colonies. So it's like a mini like conflict there. So we see that too. So the key takeaway here is that this colonization process is not that rainbows and unicorns. It wasn't that at all. So once going back to the plantation, to the fields, so they established like new systems of labor. One first is the Encomienda system. It's like feudalism. If you remember feudalism, it's like in Japan or in Europe, I think. The feudalism is like someone from a higher, remember the social triangle, someone from a higher end of the triangle, like the nobles, give land to the people, like the lower, I don't want to say lower class, but in the lower level, and in exchange for labor, it's the same thing. The natives harvest cash crops like all these like tobacco, sugar. They harvest these in exchange of shelter, and you're gonna wonder, but they live there. Yeah, but remember, Europeans took over, and they're kind of displaced from it. They had no choice. They had the weapons. We don't. So they had to it's kind of bargaining, like for protection, and shelter. You know, you're gonna work for us for this couple years. We also see the Mita system. Remember, silver trade, gold trade. So once again, the Americas has a lot of resources. So so for example, mines. So remember, think of like your Minecraft. Like where do you get gold and silver mines? They're not like out in the open, like that's gold. No, they had to like dig for it. They had to search for it within the mountains. So like in Potosi and the Zacatecas, um, we see harsh labor for the natives again, and there's long hours. So it's like an Encomienda system with extra steps. This time it's at mines, and it's for the silver trade. So we're gonna talk about mercantilism later on, but it's all about money, gold, silver. I know money, wealth. It's about gold, silver colonies. So Spanish were like, we need that for sure. And once again, we see the slave trade, where it's the horrible Middle Passage, and which led to gender imbalance and some other losses too. There we go, mercantilism. So it sounds like a challenging term, but look at the key word. That's what I always say. Look at the key word, mercant. What does it sound like? Merchant. So trade. So like the key principles here is export what you send, like products you send out, is better than what you bring in, because you don't want like to get hoard all of these. It's like TP, toilet paper. You want to, if you're like running a business, you want to sell as much toilet paper as you can. You don't want to bring in as many toilet paper as you have. You know, you end up with like a huge surplus, and it's just useless. Like, and you have to stop your TP business because you're full. Your hands are full. So you want to give more than take. Give more, take less. Once again, gold and silver, more colonies is better. So this is where you see the joint stock companies, which I went over earlier. So split the risk among investors. So like instead of like separately investing on these ships, why don't we all just invest on like these ships together? So more businesses can survive, because remember, like the foundation of capitalism. So this, you need like a lot of business. You don't want a monopoly. So basically, I mean, sure, it sounds good at first, but no, there's no variety. They can just charge as high as they want. So you want more businesses. We see the British East India Company and another rival in the we see the Dutch East India Company in like Indonesia, like Southeast Asia more, and parts of Africa. So, and I just realized, I'm not realized, but it took me a while to realize this when I was in your year, like AP World. But like, why is it called East India? Like it's like a hint because, you know, remember East Indies. They were thinking that, I mean, Americas was India, was Asia. So they established these companies specifically for that purpose. But eventually they grew out of that role. But just a little Easter egg. Also, when the Spanish, like, you remember, they had control all the mines, all these silver. Well, sucks because that silver caused inflation worldwide, because um economics, you know, you can't have the same like you can have the same like value of money with this country can just like, oh, you know, um let's say you're buying like, I don't know, you're buying a drink for $1. Let's say you're going to Dollar Tree or a dollar store and you're like buying this thing for $1 when they have like 10 million's worth. So stores are gonna have like bankrupt in like no time. So you gotta raise the value to um deal with that. Effects. So this is AP World skills. So keep these in mind. Africa was greatly weakened. Why? Slave trade, local conflict intensive. I remember these uh, these local rulers now have like guns and weapons to like consolidate their rule over Africa, and then within the rivalries within the tribe, there's also rivalries among tribes. So it's a lot. It's really messed up. So so you see Africa has a lot of divisions. It used to be a lot more until Europeans colonized it later on, and then After colonizing, they left decolonization, and then they're trying to like reform their natural boundaries, kind of, but it's still there's still like a lot of conflicts. Low economic production, once again, less people, they're gone. Gender imbalance. So slaves are mostly male. I'm not saying there were like no female slaves, but they focus more on males in terms of work, like labor potential, because they're the heavy hitters. They're the heavy they carry stuff. They carry they work on they construct stuff and all these work, and there is not a lot of opportunities for women, which is good because it's slavery. Which was good because it was slavery. It was still messed up. But increasing population, however, remember Columbian Exchange. So you're wondering, like, what? I thought there's less people though in Africa. Why is there increased population still? Remember, it's not just about like it's not like slaves comprise like 100% of the population. So, once again, diversified diet. So it increased like look at nutrition, like it made it better, like to get more vitamins and minerals. So therefore, they're healthier, and when they're healthy, you can produce more offspring. So population increase. Once again, Columbian Exchange disease. Native Americans were killed, and they were replaced with either just a religion, Christian, or Spanish/Portuguese customs, because one they were interested, kind of. So yeah, so they just gave away like one time, I think it was Columbus or another explorer. He just gave away like stuff. He just gave like interesting, like basically like trinkets, like many trinkets we have here. Like, imagine then they give them to the Native Americans. They were like, oh, look at these stuff, and they were like, oh, wow, 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 that should be worth a lot when it's worth like a penny. Let's say like I give like this sharpener, a pencil sharpener, and they're like, oh my gosh, I haven't seen this before. This is interesting. And he was like, I want your crop. I don't know, I want your crops for this. And you realize, as an outsider, you're like, that's not a fair trade. But for them, it's like, wow, it's the best thing in the world. So you also see a new social hierarchy here, peninsulares, which are like Europeans, Creoles are the Europeans born in the Americas. Mestizos and mulattoes are the hybrids, and we have the slaves. Syncretism. This is like the ones I briefly mentioned this earlier. This is the blending of religions. So we see like indigenous religions, native religions, blending with like polytheism, blending with Christianity. So we see some interesting blends here. So I gave you some examples. So we have I would focus on like the Vodun, like the West African and the Caribbean. I would focus on that like like some call it voodoo, but basically it's like West African like not always pagan, but like some pagan beliefs like blended with Christianity. Spiritualism basically, like the Virgin Guadalupe. So we see some Catholic beliefs here, like the Virgin Mary, combined with some. You see, like the elements, like she's part of like she's one like a nature god or some sorts. So we see blend syncretism. It's a blend of religions, a blend of cultures. But once again, it's not always unicorns and rainbows. It wasn't always peaceful. It should be, as should be. As it should be. So resistance, we see rebellions. So we see the Portuguese here. What usually it's the Spanish and the Portuguese in Africa. So we see Queen Nzinga, where she's tired of the slave trade. Like my people are being enslaved or being taken away, never to be heard of again. So she's done. So she just rebels against them. So in Angola, they do repel the Portuguese until she dies. So after that, she's like, oh, she's gone. No, then they take over. So you also see a pattern here where all of the rebels like they lose, but once again because of the technological advantage held by the Europeans or whoever's ruling. So just like a segue here, we have Serbs versus Russians. Russians, the government. So Serbs are like once again, it goes back to like feudalism. So they're bound to the land. They have to work for their entire lives. They have to pay like debts because they can't always make like it's kind of a rent, but they can't always make it because all they do is just work in the fields, and demand just goes up and down. So it's not always like all high, like in terms of money. So they had debts, and they want freedom for that. So they rebelled against the Russian government, and fortunately gets crushed. Now we had the Maratha versus the Mughals. So I would recommend just knowing like two of these examples, but this is an interesting one because if you remember the Gunpowder Empire, so one of them is the Mughal Empire in India. And India, if you know, is a majority predominantly Hindu state. And these Mughals are there. They're ruling. They're Muslims. They're ruling. It's a feat. It's interesting even. So and and these Hindus are not happy. They're like, technically, if they're ruling, we're the minorities now. And they're insecure. Usually when you're a minority group, do you think that your interests will be like represented fairly in, let's say today, Congress or in like in whatever institution there is? No. So they just rebel them. They just kick them out. So that's where you see the Mughal rebellion, like the Maratha rebellion. Also in New Mexico today, there's the Pueblos, and it's versus Spanish. And this is more of like a general like anti-colonialism, colonialism. They're done. Like they're exploiting us. It goes back to the Portuguese. They're exploiting us. This is not fair. We're getting kicked out of our homes. That's not good. So this is where the Pueblos rebel. And once again, all of these instances, usually it's the rebel group that's losing because technology and influence. So the strength in numbers and technology plays a huge role here. And Jamaican slaves versus slave owners, once again, over exploitation. So it's a common trend, especially in slavery. Now we see different treatment here in social hierarchies. This is more of like a broad. I'm just going over trends here. So in the Ottoman Empire, so yeah, I know you're talking about like, wait, is it? I'm talking about maritime empires, like overseas empires, yes, but remember, land empires still continued, and yes, that is Unit 3, but there's still like once again a continuity in this time period. So the Ottomans taxed the non-Muslims. So usually, if you're let's say you're in the Muslim state and you're Christian, in the old times you would get killed. Now some empires are willing to make exceptions. They're tolerant. So they were like, okay, you can establish your own community, small community inside our empire as long as you give us a handy dandy fee of how much that is. And to as an interesting difference, an interesting like unique exception, because if you remember, anti-Semitism has been here for a long time, ever since like Jesus Christ's time, or the Black Death. The Jews were blamed for the plague. With the Holocaust, we see Jews being purged. We see Jews being turned away from everywhere to the extent that they had to establish like, their own country called Israel. So, but the Ottoman Empire was more accepting towards Jews. But if you see here, they were expelled by Spain and Portugal. Remember, it's a predominantly Christian empire. And Christians and Jews have some like, it's not really a conflict, but it's like differences. So, once again, religious tolerance within the Mughal Empire. So Akbar the Great is known for being tolerant. Like he tolerates all religions. He had like these scholars, like a Hindu scholar, like a Muslim scholar, like a Christian scholar, like a Jewish scholar. Like he's more tolerant. He's more open minded. Like he's ahead of his time. Qing China, the Manchus forced the so basically remember dynastic cycle. There was this mandate of heaven. Eventually, just take over like this dynasty cycle. Eventually takes over this, like kicks out this group, becomes a ruling group until there's a new group that kicks out the old group. It's an endless cycle. So the Manchus eventually rule China, and they're done with like what being like ostracized for. So they forced like the native Chinese, like the Han Chinese men, to like wear like to wear their hairstyle, kind of like to just follow the rules. Scientific revolution, once again, more Jewish sympathy, but it doesn't completely eradicate anti-Semitism. Elites stay on top too. So we have Russian landowners, we have European nobility. If you remember, they have a huge influence over parliament, which is why the French Revolution later starts. Because then the third estate is to have like the say in things, and American Peninsularis. So they just have all the power. So when we see revolutions later on, so we want to see the building blocks towards the revolution. History keeps building. I mean, building. Like it's a huge buildup. So slavery is built up to the Civil War. It's American Civil War, something like that. So this age of colonialism is built up towards the revolutions because everyone's just done of being colonized. But that's going to come later on. So, do you have any questions? I don't see any in the questions here. And I see a lot of mess in the house e-learning so far, Paul. Interesting. So if you have any questions, we're going to go over SAQs real quick. Hopefully you can go through all of them in terms of time, but here's the first one. I'll read it to you, and then you guys tell me the answer, or give me like a random example of what you remember from either this lesson or previous lesson at school. The coercion of resistance, acculturation that typified the Caribbean experience, are the most evident the creolization of African-based religious beliefs and practices in the slave societies in the New World. And you're probably wondering, usually every other SAQ is just like, that's a lot of words. So focused on what you know, creolization. So Creole, that's American. That's like Native American. I mean, like Spanish American. African-based religious beliefs and practices in the slave societies. That's like, the app. So you see like a mingling here. So you see like, the New World. Okay, we see African slaves are here. Okay, and you see the creolization. So we see like Spanish American. So you kind of think of like a mingling here. So African religions merge. There you go. Keyword in a dynamic process with European Christian and Amerindian beliefs. So Amerindian, American Indian, to shape syncretic theologies to provide alternative ways of looking at the world in a certain kind of way. So you're seeing here, like once again, they already gave it away, but syncretism. So a blend of cultures. So describe one way. So like I'm just going over the questions. Describe one way that the creolization of African-based religious beliefs is an example of this syncretism. So if you remember, describe. So there's an ACE strategy. The ACE strategy, ACE. So if you're saying identify, just put your answer like the A. If you ask to describe, it's just the answer, and the C, which is cite an example. So what is one way that like the creolization of African-based beliefs is an example of really syncretism? So tell me how. Like, what are they doing? Like, think of the religions. Think of like the religions involved here. So we see Christianity and African religions. So you can also answer this on your own later on. I'll just go over it with you guys today. So once I share the slides, so you can say that, think of African beliefs, so like paganism, like animism, and then you can say Christianity. So you can say that once again. Remember the Virgin of Guadalupe, where you see like the Virgin Mary, but if you know her like holding like a baby Jesus, it's like Native American in ethnicity. So you can see a blend there. Like you see like, whoa, that's different from regular Christianity. So you can say that. You can say that, or actually, that was for the second one. So Christianity in Latin American and Caribbean demonstrated syncretism for African beliefs. So I would name actually you can say that for Africans too, because there's a kingdom, Christian kingdom, Ethiopia. But I would say, let's say I'm thinking of like the modern counterpart of like like West Africa. They were more Muslim, so you can say that they established mosques even even in because it doesn't have to be in Latin America. It could be in Africa. Because remember, the Europeans had triangle trade where they interacted with Africans too. So they established mosques. It's a continuity of religion, missions. So we see a continuity there, and they established more mosques in West Africa, and um, and there's like a blend with African beliefs with like not necessarily paganism, but like it's not like Islam in Africa is the complete same completely similar to Islam in the Middle East. So we see like some regional differences there. Maybe they have like these different prayers too. They have these different traditions. So you can say that. And then explain one example of rigid syncretism other than Caribbean-based examples that resulted from reclining slave trade. So you can give us any time period. Think of every religion you know, besides Christianity, Hinduism. Actually, think of all these religions you know, Christianity, Hinduism, Buddhism. Think of like one religion that blends them, like not in the Americas. Just think of like in general. So what I would think, like what comes to my mind, I have two in mind. So I would say, personally, I would say either Sikhism, which is like a blend of Hinduism and Buddhism in Southeast Asia. Hinduism and Buddhism in Southeast Asia. So they have like some practices from both sides of the coin. Or you can say Shintoism, which Japan is kind of like a blend of their own Japanese native beliefs, like the polytheism blend with Buddhism, which is more on it's not philosophy, but it's more about like living like properly in this world, in this like earthly realm. So you can think of see, I mentioned Asia. So does it have to be look at the question, does it have to be Atlantic, does it have to be like in the Caribbean or in the Americas? So I mentioned Asia. So this one. Jamaican Maroons negotiating with the British at the end of the Maroon Wars. Remember, they rebelled. Resistance and rebellion. So slaves resist. So explain one example in a society that confronted expanding European power in the period 1450 1750. So you don't always have to, not all SAQs, you'd have to look at the document, or, I mean, if it's, text document, it's not always like you have to read it. You can just look at the picture or in the caption. And if you see, oh, they're negotiating with the British, but don't get thrown off. They're just asking any form of resistance in the European powers. So looking back at the examples I have, we can talk about Angola with Queen Nzinga and the Portuguese. You can say, so remember, it's an explain, so it's an ACE. Answer the question, cite an example, explain why. So you can say, Queen Nzinga and Queen Nzinga from of Angola resisted the no. Queen Angola resisted colonial talk about the Aztecs. Yeah, sure. So after that, so Queen Nzinga like resisted the Portuguese, and then you can cite example like how she resisted through she she called for people to fight against the Portuguese, and you say explain it. This showed that the Angolans despised the colonization of the Portuguese of Angola. So that was not a good example, but you can expand on that on your own. It's coming up from the fly. So just be more like 3 to 4 sentences would work. So going to Rosa's question, the Aztecs. So this is more talking about the colonization of the fall of the Aztecs, but the Aztecs live in they're more modern day Mexico, and they live like they kind of have like an agricultural style society. It's like a normal society like in 1200 to 1450 where agriculture, they like trade, like barter trade with other empires. Some of the empires they conquered per se, they're not really conquered, but they were like, we'll leave you alone as long as you pay us tribute. So it reminds you of the Mongols. and it eventually falls. Eventually falls under Spain with Hernan Cortes, if you remember, because the Aztecs were first wiped out by disease, and they were wiped out by this just the technology, like the rivals, like the numbers, like the Europeans. There were few, sure, but they banded up with everyone who hated the Aztecs. So it's strength in numbers and technology that wiping out. So hope that helps, like in a quick overview, like in a nutshell. Now I'll go over this. Um, it's like an LQ prompt, but you want to evaluate the extent to, so, and this is like a typical wording of the LQ prompt. So evaluate the extent to which the global economy transformed labor systems in the Americas in the period 40, 50, 70, 50. So remember, College Board has a 45-minute FRQ. So we're assuming it's either one of the essays or the SAQ. So a 3-part SAQ. So when I look at the prompt, that's a lot of words, right? I would just start annotating. I would highlight. So transform. When you transform something, does it stay the same or it continues? I mean, does it stay the same or it changes? It changes, right? So that means you're changing something. So the economy transformed labor system in the Americas. So what is being transformed? Labor systems. Where? In the Americas. In what time? That time period. So it helps when you annotate it. And then you can write an outline for now on your own once you watch a replay of this. But just think of what we went over earlier. It used to be like normal labor. There's not even any labor in the Americas. It's just people like working and like field people working on like on their own will. But then slavery came, the Europeans came, slavery came. Now there's then again the Encomienda System. It's like feudalism. We you work for us, we give you food, shelter. You can talk about the, I mean, in both like South America and North America, you can talk about the Mita system where Native Americans and slaves and were forced to mine for long, long hours just to profit their silver trade. You can talk about, I mentioned the Encomienda System. You talk about once again just the sugar plantations, like how the exploitation, like just describe it. You can say how it changed, like the dynamics. Like now we have like this new social hierarchy out of nowhere where the people from the Europe are at the top and we have the imported slaves at the bottom. So you talk about that. So, and you can do some pre-writing on your own too. If you get some practice on your own, time yourself, try to write the essay on your own. This is actually an FRQ from 2018. This is the last one, by the way. FRQ from 2018. So they give some a little bit of context here. In the period 40, 50, 70, 50, there's oceanic voyages, so the age of exploration. We're slowly the Columbian Exchange, which, remember, exchange transformed both hemispheres. New food, new trading systems, kind of like slavery. We see the rise of Spain as an empire, maritime empire here. So you want to develop an argument that evaluates. So actually just look at the one part after the evaluates. How the Columbian Exchange affected people in the Americas. So as annotated, affected. So earlier we said transform. So it changed something. When you say affect, what does it sound like? Effect. What's partnered with effect? Cause. So it's cause and effect. It's a causation. It's asking you to do a causation. You can do other skills too. You can use comparison. You can use continuity and change. But the best thing that works here is cause and effect. And the cause is the Columbian Exchange. It's on the left. This had to be, but it's how the wording works. Columbian Exchange is the cause, and what was its effect in the people in the Americas? So focus on the place, okay? If you talk about people in Asia, you're already wrong. Yes, sir. Introduction to European animals, goods, people, ideas. Yes. You can even talk about like You can talk about politics. You can even talk about, remember the themes: politics, technology, economics, culture, all those. You can talk about like culture in one paragraph. You can say syncretic beliefs. Like we see an introduction to Christianity, like Sanjay briefly mentioned. Um, we can see I was talking about like syncretic beliefs, like a blend. And socially, you can talk about new hierarchy. You can talk about new hybrids. You can talk about new not hybrids are a good word. I can't think of a better one. But yeah, talk about socially, talk about hierarchy. You can talk about new races, mixed races. There we go, mixed races. Politics can talk about how there's a new status quo with the Spanish at the top and the Native Americans at the bottom. You can talk about economics, slavery, the plantations, the rise of Spain. So there's a lot of things you can talk about. So if you want to do this pre-writing on your own, once again, feel free to. I'll send it the slides afterwards. All right, you guys don't have any questions? Thank you guys for tuning for staying with me here. It was fun like doing a refresher. I know it's been a while, like since Unit 4. I think you guys said like Unit 7 now or 8. Hope for still continuing the curriculum. But thank you guys for tuning in. Stay tuned, guys. See ya. Bye bye.